talking this morning, literally as we speak, at the owners' meetings, including the coach of the Giants. We know the Giants have huge decisions to make. Their quarterback depth chart includes Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Tommy DeVito. They also have the third pick in the draft. Could that be Shedeur Sanders? That's the big question. Their coach, Brian Daboll, moments ago had this to say at the league meetings.
I think as many good players as we can add, we'll take. So right now we have the three guys in the quarterback room. We'll see what happens here over the next, call it month, if you will. And, whoever's in that room, we'll do the best job we can of coaching them up.
We saw you dapping up Shedeur Sanders, and you obviously have a relationship there. What have you got to know about him so far as a person?
Yeah, again, I respect the question. Just relative to the guys in the draft and the draft picks and the evaluation process of these guys, I'll keep all that stuff in-house right now.
I love it when they say they respect the question.
Well, I'm not answering.
Joe Shane did answer the question, okay? So this is the part that I think you think, Lewis, is the most interesting. Our Giants reporter, Jordan Ronan, tweeted a quote from the Giants GM, Joe Shane, saying, "We're in a position where we can take who we think is the best football player at that time," talking about the third pick, saying they don't have to take a quarterback. If it matches up, if the value is right, we could take a quarterback. So as we bring Mel into the conversation, Lewis, I will start with you. Yeah. When you hear those words, what do they mean?
To me, it sounds like, look, they're not, if it's Shedeur or no one else, meaning, let's just put it this way, if Cam Ward's not there, they're not taking quarterback at 3. That's what he's saying right there. If it matches up, if the value is right, I mean, you don't really need to say that. You can just say, look, we're just going to take the best player available. You don't really even need to address value or if it matches up, if Shedeur is still on the board. So to me, I think he's telegraphing, look, unless there's some way somehow that Cam Ward falls to us, you can be looking for the Giants to pick someone else.
And I mean, barring something, and we'll have Schefter a little bit later this morning, it would be a stunner if Cam Ward was available at number 3. Giants would have to move up probably 2 spots to the number 1 overall spot to get him. Mel, so let's go to you on that. Every mock I've seen you do. For those who've not followed Mel's big board, he actually has Shedeur as the number 1 quarterback in this draft. But you have mocked him at 3 to the Giants in every one that I can think of, Mel. Do you still expect the Giants to take Shedeur at 3, despite having signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston?
Well, I think the quarterback room of Wilson, Winston, and DeVito is a law firm or a quarterback room. The bottom line is, I think you look at what we have right now, we're talking about the quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, who I think can be a heck of a player. Now, if they don't agree and they don't love him, you don't take him. The best players in this draft to that point are Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Mason Graham, and Ashton Ginty. Quarterbacks are down the line a bit, but they have to love the quarterback. They love Cam Ward and just like Shedeur Sanders, you don't take him, okay? So you sit there and you say, okay, you're not going to tip your hand because guess what? They're not picking second, guys. They're picking third. And Cleveland's sitting there at 2. We're thinking maybe Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter there, passing on the quarterback. But who knows? They can't start saying, we're getting for Shedeur Sanders. They don't know what Cleveland's going to do for sure. So you just got to let it play out. We know Cam Ward's probably going 1. Cleveland takes Carter Hunter, and they're sitting there with Carter or Hunter or Shedeur Sanders. And obviously for me, Carter Hunter has a higher grade. I don't know how they feel about it, but the bottom line is you're in a division with Jayden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and Dak Prescott. You better daggone side sure that they are going to think about closing that gap. And Wilson, Winston, and DeVito aren't closing that gap too much.
Booger, talk to me.
The Giants are in a situation which I do not envy because the GM and the head coach have to win. But ownership has come out and said, we need to find our quarterback of the future. Well, the numbers and the data show us you're going to find your quarterback of the future in the first round. Is there value at number 3 in taking a quarterback, but they need to win now? It's a situation in which I do not envy. If they're going to do the right thing by the franchise, they take the best player available, which is probably not a quarterback. Maybe you can come back in round 2 or 3 and get your quarterback later. So it's a situation where I think head coach and GM need to talk to the owner and say, hey, what is it that you want us to do? Because this is your team. Because if we're trying to save our job, we need to get the best player available. But if you're telling us we need our quarterback of the future, the likelihood of getting that guy has got to be up top in the first 3 picks.
Oh, they've talked to the owner before. And you saw how that turned out.
Exactly.
Right? When the owner was sitting in the back of the room and he's sitting there pleading with them to not trade
Saquon
franchise running back. And they were just like, yeah, okay. You just sit over there, man. We got control of this. Yeah, look, to me, it just seems to me that Joe Shane is telling you, look, And I know I'm playing junior psychologist here, but it seems to me like he's saying, look, the value to him doesn't seem to match up at 3 with Shedeur if he's sitting.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to match up. And quite honestly, look, if that's the way you're going to go with it, you better be damn sure that Russell and Jameis are going to be able to get you enough wins to where John gives you another year and gives you more time to find this franchise quarterback. Or somewhere else later in this draft, like in the bottom of the first, as Greeny has posed numerous different times, you come back in the first.
But
and
there's
find
no
somebody
way.
else.
There's no way. Anybody in that organization can say we have confidence in Russell and Jameis.
Of course not.
No way. And so,
and that speaks to what you're saying right now, right? They're in a position where you don't envy.
Exactly.
Because right now, if they take the quarterback and don't believe in him, then you're really just trying to placate the owner and buy yourself more time.
Exactly.
And that usually ends in disaster.
And just look, again, we've put together our whole draft group today. For those of you who don't know, we host the draft together. The 4 people you see on your screen right now is Schefter and a cast of thousands. And Mel, what I keep thinking about is if Shedeur Sanders is as famous a prospect as we're going to have coming in as a quarterback based upon his past, his father's past, and all the rest of that. If we get through 3 picks and Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Cam Ward are the first 3 who go off the board, you know, there's always this possibility. I don't like speaking it into the world because I don't wish this on anyone. But that does set up a situation to me, Mel, where it could start to become sort of a long night for Shedeur Sanders. How do you see it?
It's happened a lot over the years. I went back to 1970. If you want the best opportunity to get a quarterback based on the numbers, that's in the top 5 of the draft. Now, that sliding quarterback, we've had 8, according to my rankings and mocks that I had, going back to 1970. 6 of those 8 were big hits. Okay, 2 were busts. That was Jimmy Clausen and Brady Quinn, the 2 Notre Dame quarterbacks. So if Shedeur does slide, it bodes pretty well for him and the team that drafts him. Top 5 is the best spot to get that guy, though, in terms of the history of the draft. But in terms of Shedeur, New Orleans is sitting there at 9. Pittsburgh's sitting there at 20. The Rams are sitting there at 26. So again, you talk about if we don't get Shedeur, we can get somebody else. What if those guys are gone? So you're not going to have like 5, 6 guys after the top 1 or 2. It's just not going to happen. So if you identify the 1 or 2 guys you really like and you want to move forward with as your developmental quarterback, you better get one of those guys. You can't lose them. So this notion, trade out, move around, do this, there's no guarantees you're going to get that player. And for Shedeur Sanders, I agree, guys, he's not rated in terms of my rankings, and a lot of people I've spoken to in the league, that high. So the Giants, though, are the team picking 3. And we know they always force quarterbacks up there. And my point would be, if you don't get Shedeur and you don't take Shedeur, who is that developmental quarterback going to be? Because they're going to draft a quarterback within the first 2 rounds of the draft.
All right. Keep this thought here for the moment because there's one more thing that just came in that I want to get to. We'll come back to the quarterbacks.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Ngày hôm nay mình sẽ tiếp tục hướng dẫn các bạn câu tượng nhé. Tượng hôm nay của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là chuột cống. Các bạn hôm nay vào tượng của mình là chuột đồng. Bây giờ nó là tôi nhá. Đỉnh đồi.
Nồi nghe rõ từ nồi trước, còn từ trước từ này như là giờ cái đoạn âm cuối cùng như là cái đồ đúng không? Thì anh nghe rõ là vì nồi.
Gì? Quan trọng là tất cả thấy cái bước tiêu đề này. Ta chỉ thấy cái bước tiêu đề này nó là cái bước phân biệt video thôi chứ ta chả thấy nó có là cái gì nhá. Mọi người xanh lên nhá. Thôi năm nay chụp ảnh sinh nhật ở nhà.
Ôi, tao mà được con này tao sử dụng con này để phát mạng luôn.
Trông có tiền.
Trông thì vuông xong rồi cầm bé. Tôi chỉ ăn 5 ngày trước.
Fake time.